Hello and welcome to Control Alt Marketing. I'm your host Meeta Mandavkar. My guest today is Rohit Srivastav, Head of Marketing at FleetPanda, founder of S11S community, and a well-known figure in the SaaS circles. Rohit's journey is fascinating. He has created serendipity in his career by putting himself online, and he uses unique mental models when he's looking at new roles, and there's so much more that he does. And these strategies have not only helped him stand apart, but have also built an unfair advantage in his marketing career. This episode, guys, is a 24-carat gold. You don't want to miss it. So, let's meet Rohit Srivastav. Thank you, Rohit, for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I was waiting for this episode very eagerly to, have this chat with you.
Thank you so much. It's my privilege to be here, and happy to share whatever you need me.
Great. So let's first start by digging into your background. What was it like growing up? Are there any particular interests or hobbies that have shaped you to become what you are today?
I was born in Patna, and I believe I belong to a purely middle class Bihari family. My mom and dad had a very interesting ambition that so in Bihar, there was I think in all over India and that at that time there was obsession with people, their kids speaking English and conversing in English, especially in the lower middle class strata, because I think that was assumed to be a ticket out of that spiral. So because of that, my dad made me go to the best school in Patna. It was called International School. It is still one of the best schools in Patna. And in fact, that shaped me a lot because my peer group changed, the kind of conversations changed. So in fact, fun fact, I did not really have to study for my English paper in CAT because of how those 15 years of rigorous English speaking schooling changed me. And I'm not kidding, but there was a fine that was levied if any of the teachers caught you speaking in any other language from English. So that helped me get the confidence, and that was an important factor that shaped my childhood and then later on. And in fact, right now when I got into content and all, it always helped me just write better, just be give me that head start in the career. So that was one aspect. Other than that, because of, again, my family and the schooling both combined, my mother read a lot. So I would steal the magazines and the books that she would buy for herself during her afternoon nap, and I would read them. And that made me sort of have a generation gap with my own generation, because I would be reading really matured stories of marriages, separation, and all of those that sort of hit me in the wrong places in my head, and that made me like an old soul much earlier in my life. And I have been that person still. And honestly, looking back, I'm thankful that I was exposed to such art and such good literature early on in my career. In fact, that is one reason why I always had a burning desire of becoming a writer in some manner or form. And honestly, content marketing was one of that outlets. Obviously, I'm not comparing both those crafts, but I think the similarity and just being able to create gave me a lot of satisfaction throughout. So I think these two things have been the shaping factors of my personality.
There are so many points in this that I can so identify with. My parents also had a very similar ambition. I think it's a very middle class thing, especially for that generation. Especially the kind our parents are from, they wanted the best for their kids, which they, at least in my parents' case, was not available with them. And they tried to do the same thing with us. But it's so interesting to know that all these early influences play such a huge role when you grow up. And it's the benefit of hindsight, I believe. Like right now, you can see exactly that connection happening between your early interests and also the kind of work that you're doing. There were influences, but I like the fact that, your parents ended up sending you to the best school and it had such a great impact on your career. And the cat anecdote is just wonderful.
Yeah, I was lucky there.
Yeah. Okay, I think the next thing that I would want to unpack is you went on to do your MBA at IMT Nagpur and you had some. So, what was the decision behind doing your MBA? That's one. And I've also read about this very interesting story about you having a very nice side hustle during your MBA, which was running like a semi-viral meme page, which also had like its own story. So, would love to dig into it.
It was all luck and chance. Honestly, like as you said, in hindsight, it all makes sense. But when you are playing the game first-person shooter, you don't really know which map to follow, right? And in fact, when I was in my MBA, I got into my MBA in 2011, which like the limited exposure of internet and just the amount of information available on the available options, there was so less that I chose MBA. But the backtracking of that decision is till now I say this, and it's not something that I'm proud of, but the personality that I have is I might not always know where I want to be, but I for sure know where I don't want to be. So when I stepped into my engineering college, because of just that was the only option, I got into my engineering college. First semester, I was a really good student, like I always was. I put in all my effort and everything, and I scored decently well as well. But then through that process, I understood that this is not for me. Like I'll be a dead rat if I continue doing this. And massive respect to people who actually did it well and are really very well placed, my friends, in their career. But I figured that this is not for me. So I started figuring out what is that interests me and what is that is also achievable given the financial situation, the academic, like my entire talent, cumulative talent, what I can achieve with that. So somehow or the other, obviously MBA was the natural progression because you are also from those MBA institutes, advertisements and all, you get to know what is MBA all about, and you have certain ideas, and then you sort of start flipping through the pages of the preparation book, and you figure out, "Acha, ye to kar sakte hain. This is doable." So I started there, and then I obviously messed up my CAT exam big time, and I could not get into any of the IIMs, obviously. So I got into this college called IMT Nagpur, which is the sister concern of IMT Ghaziabad. A decent college, or it felt like back then. So I was there and I was having a lot of fun, and then a lot of people started observing my comic timing and just like how generally I was funny, and they said, and I started seeing a lot of these Facebook pages cropping up for certain like multiple memes, and like the first generation of memes back then, right? So I thought I can also do this, and I started a meme page called B School Tips, and it was not called meme back then. It was just a funny page, and it would just pick up random observations that I would find during my campus walks, and I would put it in there, and we got like good amount of likes, and it reached, by some fateful means, it reached now my friend Siddharth Deswal. He was a fresh graduate out of his college, his MBA, back in 2012, and he had joined a company called Wingify back then, which is now called VWO. So he sort of gave me the first introduction to the world of SaaS, that there is a startup thing happening. And I used to read the newspaper a lot, so I knew that there are these things called startups cropping up, but I did not know what and how and like what goes behind the scenes. So Deswal was the first guy who told me that there's something going on, and that sort of got me interested. And then obviously there's a larger part that happened. I got placed in a company called Bajaj Allianz, an insurance company, and then that thought of actually getting paid to write never left my head, and I would train myself on weekends and late nights to break into this world of SaaS. There were other people involved. One of very important factors in that journey was a guy called Hiren, who is also a friend still. He was building a startup out of Baroda, and I was posted in Ahmedabad with this company. So we met. He trained me into content marketing. He taught me how to write a blog and how to do SaaS marketing and stuff. And that is how I finally cracked a role in WebEngage. And then I think from there on, my SaaS journey has been very fulfilling, overwhelming. Like I have all gratitude towards it.
There were so many interesting things to unpack over here. I think one of the first things that I noted was right from the time that you were studying, doing your MBA, you have been putting yourself out there online in different formats. Okay. So it started off.
I love validation.
Yeah. And that's a great way. I think it also, I mean, you ended up discovering and meeting Siddharth Deswal, if I'm not mistaken, that way. Because through that meme page, whatever it used to be called back then. But
let's call it meme page for general.
Yeah, you met Hiren also that way. So I think one takeaway I get from this is just because when you're trying to build connections, when you're trying to build in public, or when you're just trying to put yourself out there, you end up meeting people, you end up making connections, and that definitely helps. Because I think
one small detail there, how I met Hiren was, I would just to break free and practice my writing, honestly. So that lunch break during the insurance job, I would sit on Quora and write answers, like just random answers on relationships, marketing, brand, politics, anything that piqued my interest that I could write 300 words on. I would just go so that my fingers would work on keyboard so that I am in the writing habit. And a few answers went super viral on Quora, and that is how Hiren discovered me. That okay, this guy can write. The first thing that he told me is, dude, you know how to write? I will teach you what to write. And that is how the entire, like if I would not have written those Quora answers, most probably I would still be selling insurance or something like that.
So definitely putting yourself out there has rewards.
Absolutely. It's the biggest leverage. Like even today, I think the reason why we are talking is because of my LinkedIn presence. Right? And I've been fortunate enough to meet incredible people who have discovered me through my writings, which is much beyond my physical network. Like for people who I have known beyond LinkedIn, these are the people who have figured me out through LinkedIn, found me out. I've had great discussions, worked with a couple of them actually in my jobs and so on. So unlimited, unfair advantage you can build through putting yourself out there.
And makes sense. I think it also helps you amplify your connections, your surface area of visibility, so to speak. Like when you're working, you basically are just connected to the organization, or you're connected to your immediate family and friends. This helps more people discover you, find you. You end up finding more people. And when you start interacting with people, like magic happens. As it did in your case as well, like your entry into SaaS is also very dependent on that. Like your entry into SaaS and your entry into content marketing.
Yes. And my success in SaaS, like whatever little success that I have had, has been a lot of that is through me just putting myself out there. And one, I'm not really ashamed to ask for help for any like the smallest of things. So people know that this is me. Like I will be this guy on a podcast, on a phone call, on WhatsApp, everywhere. So that has helped me. And second thing is, yes, honestly, sharing everything that I have learned has really helped me a lot.
Fair enough. Right now, let's jump into the next part of your journey. So, like you had your role at Bajaj Allianz. You were in sales then. You were crushing your targets. You actually ended up moving on from Bajaj Allianz, taking like a big enough pay cut and actually moving into a startup. And that's how the whole journey began for you. So let's get into your SaaS part of the journey now. Like you've worked at multiple organizations. How has it been? Like what's influenced your entire trajectory with each role?
I can, and this again is power of hindsight, obviously. But if I backtrack this, for the early years of my career, I honestly didn't know better. The only thing, again, was the broken mental model of I don't want to be here. I want to be somewhere else. Where? I don't know. And that's where one of the worst influences that something has had on my career, which is on like any decision that I have taken, is I read that the autobiography of Richard Branson very early, and there's this one line that just stuck with me, and it has been with me for the past decade, is when you don't know a job, take it and learn it. So if somebody is giving you a job, and you are nervous about it, just trust yourself and you'll figure it out. That is how he built his entire empire. I am not even 0.001% or as many zeros that you want to put in before that. But that gutsy mental model or framework has helped me take those jobs that sometimes I was very successful at, sometimes I failed miserably at. But both those cases, one another, like, I think, I don't remember the poet, but I love this line, is "Kuch nahi to tajurba hoga," which has been the summary of it all. That every place I have been, I have either flourished or learned a lot. So when I started out, I mean, I was doing content for a couple of years at Web Engage. I learned that, and then I wanted to do demand gen. So I went to, like, Hiren, that guy from Baroda and all. He came back. He wanted to hire me. He wanted to work together again on multiple things. I took like a 6 months break, went to work with him. We couldn't figure out a PMF. He again, like, he closed shop. He went back to his thing. I was searching for a job again. Then I was at CleverTap because CleverTap was asking me to not do content. I'm like, okay, this is good because I have been doing content and this is not content. So I'll do this. That turned into what we call demand gen today. It was not called demand gen back then. I did not know it is going to be called demand gen. So I made a lot of mistakes at CleverTap because it was the first time that I was doing it, but Admitra was very kind to teach me. The team was very supportive. So I learned a lot. Then I figured, okay, demand gen is good, but I think I'm not built for it because this is not writing. This is not content. This is not something that I really enjoy. Then again, this re-entry of an old friend, which is Siddharth Deswal. He was joining a company in Pune and he wanted wanted me to work alongside him. So I joined a small company in Pune alongside him and started doing product marketing because I have done content marketing, I have done demand gen, and now I was doing product marketing, which is not A, not B. So I'll do C. So after I did that, I understood that zindagi aise nahi chalegi. This is not the right way to live your life. Now I need to figure out what do I really want to do. And though in that 1 year, obviously a lot of discussion with Siddharth and other people and reading a lot. In fact, that I started reading around that time and going back to books because sort of this entire learning content marketing and learning this like SaaS marketing, all of this made me believe that blogs and internet reading is reading, but it is not. You need to go back to the classics. So I picked up that book called Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. That changed my life a lot. That impacted a lot. One framework that I would maybe share for people who are listening is, and this is not verbatim, this is my understanding of the framework is, we like humans, especially formally educated humans, we always focus on the things that we are bad at. So if there is a skill which we are A plus at, and there's a skill we are C minus at, we'll focus on the C minus skill a lot to bring it to B plus level. But to actually be supremely good, like in the top 1% of your career, you need to only focus on the A plus skill and make it A plus plus, A plus plus plus, A plus plus. Like, just become so good in that one particular niche that nobody can replace you there. And that is where I figured, yeah, running away from content and like messaging and all of these things that I'm really good at is the worst thing that I'm doing to my career. And that is where I figured that I need to go back to this stronghold. And I can always hire people. I can always bring people in who are good at the other parts of the job. And that has helped me in the past. Like, that has been my mental model for the past, I think, 3/4 jobs, because one was an acquisition. So I don't know how to count that. But for the past 3 jobs, that has been my framework. And in fact, I wrote something about the entire mental model of switching jobs. And honestly, that is not just for writing's sake. I actually run every new offer through those mental models. So yeah, that has been like my learning through multiple companies.
I love this particular part of conversation because there was so much of food for thought for me as well. Say for instance, right now the few things that I've taken away from this are like, firstly, it's okay to take a chance even if you don't know how to go about and do things. Just go ahead, do it, and see what you learn out of it. The second part is like just leaning into your strengths. A lot of us don't do it. We tend to focus on things that we are not as good at, and that has really helped you move back into your original stronghold, which was always the content marketing side of things. And honestly, I think that's a great takeaway. I think one thing that I would like to dig a little deeper right now, based on what you shared, was can we get into the mental models that you've spoken about? Because a lot of people don't really think that way when they're approaching their job search. I mean, the way in which we approach the work that we do as marketers for our companies, for the places that we work at, I think if we are able to bring that similar rigor to our careers, it will make a huge difference. And I think the
Yeah.
post that you've written is actually an attempt exactly at that, trying to bring that sort of clarity and strategic insight to your own careers. So, for the
Yeah.
audience, for the people listening on this podcast, I would love for you to just dig into that particular aspect of, the conversation, the mental models, like with examples as to how you have also used it.
Sure. So I am trying to demystify this entire decision-making process a lot many times. Earlier, it was comparatively a juvenile effort. I used to call it the three-legged stool. So it was when I was deciding my job, like which are the jobs that I would apply for my during my MBA or helping my friends take that decision. The easier version of that the framework was there are three pillars of the job: the money, the brand, and the actual job that you'll do. And if you are not from the tier one college, you will only get two things out of the three. So, so it's your choice which two things that you want to pull together. I always compromise on the brand part because I always like whenever I now CleverTap and WebEngage are brands. When I joined, they were not. So I always prioritize the money and the kind of work that I'm going to do above brands. A lot of people prioritize brands over the kind of work or the money, and it basically two out of three. Pick two out of three, and you'll figure out right which two matters most to you. Just do that. But later on, I figured, ki, acha, now there are more things at stake, and now I have more choices. So this needs to be more strategic and more structural as a decision making process. So that is when, and in fact, during those years, I read a lot about mental models in itself because I figured that there is a science of decision making, and as higher you climb in your career, you are not actually paid for the work that you do, but the decisions you take. So the smarter decision that you'll take, the more money you'll be paid. Right. So I wanted to be really good at that. So during that process, I derived from the things that I was reading and sort of put it together for my job switching scenario. Right. So the first thing was speed versus velocity. A lot of people like I love this. I forget whoever is attributed to the quote, but the quote remains with me is a lot of people have 10 years experience with just 1 year of work. So they're just keeping the same. They keep doing the same thing over and over again, right? And I hate that. So I my version of that quote is uh, doesn't matter like if you're in a bus and that is going somewhere and it is the most comfortable bus ever, the AC draft is really great. There's a great sight out of the window and you're really enjoying yourself. But you need to ask the question: is the bus going where you want to go? So if it is not, then all of this doesn't really matter. And this is a very simple framework, but people always get lost in the details. यार मेरा boss बहुत अच्छा है, या यार the office is near to my place, or yeah, I think the appraisal is going to be very nice this year. All of this doesn't matter in the longer run. Is the bus going where you want to go? And for that, obviously, you need to know where you want to go. If you don't know, then any bus will take you. But so that was part one, right? The second part was, and this is again attributed to my friend Deswal, which is think like a VC. Uh, so my derivation of that statement is we don't have, like, we are not investing in most cases, we are not investing in the money in the startups that we're going to join. But what we are doing is assuming that you are paid, your CTC is 10 lakh rupees, right? So it's one way to think about this is you are actually investing 10 lakh rupees into a company if you are working there for 1 year, right? So if you had 10 lakh rupees cash right now, would you invest in this company or not? Right. Now, the unpacking of this question is, does it have a big enough TAM? Is the PMF there? Are the founders really good? Is the culture good? Is the second level leadership really good? Is the GTM figured out? Or whatever, whatever those factors are there, you can find multiple factors that you want to evaluate. The research of this is through by listening to interviews, reading articles, doing back channel reviews and all of that. But the information that you need to gather is what a VC would gather in the due diligence process, right? So it helps you think like that. The third thing is I write like a decision post-mortem for my role. Is if I fail in the next 18 months, miserably that is, fail at everything in this job, what are those reasons I would fail? And if those reasons are all in my control, good enough. If those reasons will highlight a few dark areas which I don't have any information about, then I know what is there to be asked to the interviewer. And if there are things that are just staring me and like is writing on the wall, then obviously you should not take that job. So these are like the 3 pillars of my decision-making process.
I think this has been one of the most invaluable ways of looking at your career. And thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure listeners are going to have a ball listening and understanding and using this for themselves. I'm going to make sure that I link the mental model post that you've written on your blog in the show notes. And whenever every place that this episode gets released, I think it's too invaluable. More people need to think like this when it comes to their career, especially marketers. We are so impacted with all the turmoil that's happening in the market. We are the first ones on the chopping block. It makes more sense that we are a little more careful with our career decisions too.
Yeah, I think that, and I hope that is helpful to people listening and using it later.
Yep, absolutely. So we have so far dug into your your SaaS journey. You were one of the early entrants into the SaaS industry when it started off. Your experience working across multiple subdomains of marketing when they were not exactly called those, like demand gen, product marketing, they've all come in way later. And then finally you have a very strong background in content and brand, so to speak. Now, I think the next thing that I would love to hear is you've worked on some extremely successful and unconventional marketing campaigns. Like I've seen glimpses of those on LinkedIn and on your newsletter and every other place. Let's talk about those campaigns that you've been a part of. It would be great to hear about that.
So I think, let me just start by saying this, that a lot of times, I think all the marketers that I know have had similar ideas or better ideas at certain point, but they need a lot of confidence coming in from the management and the founders to actually execute it. I was able to execute it mostly because of the founders trusting the idea and trusting me to actually execute it. So the ideas might not be like out of this world at times, but I think getting that stakeholder alignment and actually getting that executed is the real need. So I'm not trying to position myself as like a mad genius or something. It's just that there is a method to this execution. So that is part one. Now the campaigns, I think it all started at Netcore which is very unassuming, like very, very counterintuitive, because Netcore is, I think, the oldest company in terms of the existence of years that I have worked at. And people usually take age of the company as their momentum against changing, right? So, which was not the case actually. So I was given all the independence to run program. In fact, one of the earliest confidence boosting campaigns was we were able to launch our AI engine back in 2019 with Rahul Subramaniam as the brand ambassador, which was unheard of in the SaaS ecosystem, right? So we actually got the comedian in. We co-wrote the script with him, all the jokes and punches. We actually got it shot and the video with the video and everything, and it went live. And nobody could believe it that Netcore was doing something like this. Obviously, I got a lot of accolades for it from the peer group, from the entire community. But to be honest, that idea was not mine. The idea was crowdsourced, mostly from my manager at that time. But the entire team coming together and breaking through all of this was the real deal. So again, coming back to the execution part, right? The second thing that we did was to figure out the baseline of these campaigns were really this line from David Cancel, the founder of Drift, that product-based differentiation is going out, and the only differentiation that will be is the stories that you tell and the brand that you build. Right. So based on that, I tried to figure that what is that unfair edge that I have over other people. So when we launched another huge campaign at Netcore was when we acquired a company called Box.ai. So that word had to be let out. Now, obviously, you can do the PR and everything, but that's all right. But what we did was, since LinkedIn video was very new, we asked, so there are two things. LinkedIn video is new, the algorithm is favoring it. And then I have a strength of 500 people inside the company who are they have a living, breathing LinkedIn profile. So when you match both of these things, what I did was I created multiple versions of the script where you can just hold your phone and record that video and send it to me. I will edit, I will look at it from is it good to go perspective or not. And then, so we ran this entire thing and we collected over 125 videos of people and teams just recording selfie videos. And then we orchestrated the release of the video through the entire day. And all across the SaaS ecosystem, it was just Netcore that entire day. Netcore acquired Box.ai, so the videos are coming. So all the tech people, all the support guys, all the success, sales, marketing, everything. So 125 videos, 150,000 plus views, and more than 25 enterprise MQLs in 24 hours without spending a dime. So that was one of the proudest campaign. Again, the meat was in the execution. Obviously, you put two radical. So I'll give you a framework. Creativity happens when two very different, unrelated, radical streams of thoughts collide. And I'll give you a very random example. There are celebrities, you don't know about their private life. What if we put 10 celebrities in a house and they are not allowed to do celebrity things? That's big boss. So that is how creativity happens. When you relate two very unlikely, unrelated thought streams. Those were the two very, very good campaigns. Then Kula was my reign, free reign. I was allowed to do everything. Achu was a great founder. He just gave me the budget and the support that I needed, and it's just go crazy. So Kula, we did a lot of things. I think the NASDAQ campaign followed up by PR takeover. A lot of things went wrong in that campaign, and because we were we had press commitments that didn't go live. So we had to take the narrative in our own hands and just own the distribution. Then the second time when we raised a round of $12 million, we knew how to orchestrate that better. So the assets that we had was there had to be a TechCrunch coverage, there was a Forbes coverage, there was our own coverage on our own LinkedIn and blog and so on, and then there was a NASDAQ takeover. So all of that combined, so we did so rather than a one-day campaign, we turned that into a 3-day campaign. So that is exactly how execution playbook works, right? You figure out what are the things that you can do, when and where, what will go, and that is how you figure out. Then one of the proudest campaign was the Uber Ride campaign. So the Uber Ride campaign was essentially, so we were supposed to go to Shastra, but we could not there were some investor meetings and board meetings scheduled at that time. So we just could not travel to SaaStr. But we saw that a lot of like SaaS movie caravan was going there, and they were going to be at SaaStr. So what we did was we basically calculated the cost of us going to SaaStr, converted that into Uber coupons, and named the Uber coupons called just Kula. And we distributed it across the SaaS Boomi group. So that helped us get us like brain space, and people remembered us. People used a lot of those coupons, and we like all the SaaS founders in India now knew Kula and what it does. So it got back to us. Like we generated around 75 founder leads in 3 days. Obviously, now when do you like that was a non-salesy campaign, but essentially just getting that space in their minds that Kula helps with your recruiting and Kula is a software that you can use for team expansion and recruiting. I think that is a win in itself. So those are the campaigns.
That's certainly true. I think my personal favorite among all of this has been, actually, I would say the Box AI one. Very interesting. I think it's so difficult to pull off campaigns organically and to use it and to use like a network effect on social media and to pull it off. I think that's just fantastic. It's every marketer's dream, spending less pennies or no pennies and getting the best bang for buck out of it.